Greetings, Patrick here. Welcome to Eight Questions with on a very chilly southeastern Michigan night. Oh man, it was funny. It's like a couple of days ago. I went out and it was like 27 degrees out, cold, but you could feel the sun. Um, it felt warm. It actually felt really warm, even though it was only 27 degrees. Because it's been so cold that 27 degrees seems like warm. But it came roaring back today. It's supposed to be down to, it was roared back yesterday. It's supposed to be back down to 2 degrees yesterday, 0 degrees today. We're supposed to get snow tomorrow into Saturday, anywhere between 2 to 4 inches. But then next week, we're warming up. We're actually going to be cracking 40. So I'm glad about that. This has been a long winter, a very long winter. Most of the time, we don't really get our snow until like the third, the end of half of January. That's where we've seen lately a few years here in Michigan. We only get snow here like 2 or 3 weeks in January, and not that much. But this has actually been a very wet winter for us. So tonight we are bringing back one of our favorite guests in screenwriter and film director Austin Galante. He is coming back, and we're gonna be talking a little bit about our vampires. Vampires will be the topic, and today we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna be interviewing Austin, of course, but we're also gonna be talking, like I said, about vampires. We're gonna be each doing our own favorite list of vampires. Um, yeah. So if you have favorite vampires movies as well, you could chip in as well. I'm doing 10. I thought I'd do 10. I'm not sure how many. I think we talked about five, but we'll get him to do 10. Um, I'm sure a cinephile like Austin is, he'll crank up probably 20 vampire movies. So, and the reason why we're going to be talking about vampires, obviously, because he has directed an original movie that we have covered here on the channel. We covered Sanguine Road on Sanguine Teeth on a Driftless Road, and yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those things where it's this is where sort of indie film is at right here. This is actually a microcosm of it. You come out with a really cool, original, fresh idea, a take on a vampire movie. That doesn't happen very often. Every time it's always the same. The black coat and the fangs and the crosses. And, it's always, a Christopher Lee, coming through, or Peter Cushing. Like it's just the same in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. So when you go ahead and you get a vampire movie like Sanguine and put it in modern times and strip away some of the cliches, like basically vampires. I guess the one movie or the one show I could compare this to, in a sense, would be Angel, um, set in contemporary times, and the vampires there didn't dress like traditional vampires. They didn't really act like traditional vampires. Yes, they're bloodsuckers and they feed and all that, but it's different in the fact that there's no cloaks, there's no stakes, there's no Van Helsing, there's none of that. It's contemporary. It's like, what if vampires really lived in our world now? 30 Days of Nights is another good example, even though it does have some cliches to it. Now, Sanguine is really different in the fact that it is a horror comedy. And it takes a lot of the ideas as we know about vampires and shakes them up a little bit. It's not the traditional vampire movie you expect to see. Uh, hey, Trenchy's here. What's going on, sir? Angel is yes. I agree. It's the audiences that love the show are aging out. I mean, they age out of it, right? Because the show's not on anymore, and the people who loved it then have gone. The show's over with, so it's not in the public's eye. So you tend to forget about it. a lot of times that's what happens to old TV shows or old movies is because it's not in the public's eye all the time. It's all constantly being recycled, replaced, and before you know it, here we are. You think, oh, I remember Angel. Oh, that was a good show, but that's really about it. Nobody, you don't notice anybody else really talking about it too much. Personally, I think Angel's a fantastic show, and I think it's a fantastic show. I still have yet to get into Buffy, but we are going to. We are going to get into the Buffy. Um, Probably with one of my retro tube episodes coming up soon, which has been a lot of fun. Which is a lot of fun. We've been doing that lately, and we're having a hell of a fun time doing that. But yeah, but as far as contemporary vampire movies go, or series go, it's just not that. I mean, there's been efforts for sure. When you have a True Blood, of course. There was a little short run series, like 10 episodes before it got staked, called Dracula by John Race, Jonathan Race Davies. I know there's Moonlight that came out on CBS for one season. Off it went. So vampires are still are still popular. They're still quite popular, but finding any fresh stories. I think one of the reasons why some of those shows didn't make it was it's the traditional, fangs on the, fangs and, killing beautiful young women or seducing them, or no one wants to sit there and say, like, well, like Buffy, like, hell, he took a great chance with Buffy. You took a vampire, traditional vampire that was Angel, and you flipped the script and you made him an anti-hero. And then you give him his own show where he helps people. He doesn't feed on them. He helps them. Uniqueness, different, fresh. That's what we need for vampire movies or werewolf movies. I know Robert Eggers did Nasas. You know what I'm talking about. Say it for me. Nustrafu? Oh God, I can't pronounce that word. Well, the early version of vampire of the vampires, the one that Klaus Kinski played, who was just ugly as sin, weird looking face. That's a vampire. That's what an old vampire looked like. And then we got the Bela Lugosi vampire, who became the Count, and basically just broke the mold of what, and basically set the table for every vampire as ever since his portrayal as Dracula. We always compare it to that movie right there, and you should, because it is the best. It's very, very subversive. It's for 1931. That movie got away with a lot. It's very impressive. Let's see. Also is overshadowed by Buffy, which is a great show, but Angel is fantastic too. And I liked it a bit more than Buffy. I liked it a lot. Yeah, thanks, Trenchy. Nosferatu. Nosferatu. Now, Robert Eggers did that. He remade that film, and it was like, okay, I can respect that. I can respect the effort made for that movie, but there's nothing new to it. There's why would I need to go out there and see that movie when I can pony up and put in the 31 version of it and be just as entertained, if not more so. Now, when you come to classic creatures like the Wolfman, Invisible Man, like they did what they did with the Invisible Man, they upgraded that. They made it into more of a science fiction movie. It wasn't a potion on himself. It was done by science fiction. It's done by technology. Different take on an old subject. Gotta dig it, right? And then you put Elizabeth Moss in there, and bingo. I think creators now in terms of creating, like with what Austin did with Sanguine Teeth, is to take the idea, take the idea, take the character, and give it a good hard shake, and then flip it over and see what happens. And that's really why one of the reasons why Sanguine Teeth for On the Driftless Road was one of my best movies of last year, because it was not only really refreshing to see a different take of a vampire movie, but it was very well acted, very funny. I also got to go ahead and shout out the fact that Austin Galante has he put Charlie Mack in his movie, young comedian Charlie Mack. He put him in his movie. He's gonna look like a freaking genius, because that kid is on his way up, big, big. I think this year, by the end of 2026, Charlie Mack is going to be a household name. He's a funny dude. And I gotta give credit, because I had never heard of him before until Austin says, I got this young cat. I put him in the movie. He's a really funny comedian. And then lo and behold, he was lights out. Hey, Charles. Nosferatu. Well, if you say fur, you got me right there. Nosferatu. Hey, Stephen, how are you, sir? That was a fun live stream you did today. Very well done. Very well done. You had a lot of people on your chat today. Thanks, Charles. Nosferatu. I didn't even put it on my list because I couldn't even damn near pronounce it. Let's see. How about Fur Out 2? I could probably get that. It's probably cat related. So I don't know. I mean, like, I know there's going to be another werewolf movie coming out. Where, I think it's called. I know that's coming out. I don't know if it's going to be a traditional werewolf movie, or is it going to be something really different. I'll tell you an underrated movie, and one I'm really looking for. Actually, I'm looking for a copy of it because I don't have it. But I'm looking forward to watching Jack Nicholson's Wolf. Now, I know that's a really old movie. I know it's a real old movie, him and Michelle Pfeiffer. But I've seen a couple of clips on it, and it's really intrigued me. And I really got my eye out trying to find a copy of that, because I really like to see that, because I think that movie, from what I understand, is quite different from the traditional werewolf movie. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yes, I've heard that. Now, I like, as far as werewolves go, I absolutely love Werewolves Within. Hell yeah, that's my favorite werewolf movie right now. That movie was so much fun and so different. And for one thing, the werewolves and Hunter's Moon. We can't forget a Hunter's Moon. I'm going to be talking about that when I talk werewolves. You got to know that, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's probably about time for me to jingle Michael Cassie's bell to see if he's done anything with it. Like, hopefully make it like a short story or something with it. Eric's here. That's right. It's our good friend Eric the Renegade. That's right. We're gonna have a lot of fun here. Yeah, what's funny is well, I tell you what, our doorbell has rang, so it means our guest is here. So let's keep this werewolf and vampire chat going. We're gonna be doing some top 5s, top 10s. You're more than welcome to chip in yours, and we're gonna bring Austin to the table. Welcome back. Welcome back, sir.
How are you?
All right. We are talking, we already set the table for you. We're talking werewolves and vampires. I actually got pronounced how to say Nosferatu. I couldn't say it by itself. So someone had to break it down for me so I could read it, because I couldn't pronounce it. Again, thank you for that, Charles.
I have a picture of a cat up in my corner of my screen.
Yes, that is a cheetah right there.
Okay,
It's a hybrid between a British Shorthair and a cheetah. And yeah, he's our guardian protector of the show.
gotcha, gotcha.
He looks he looks pretty fierce there, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Yeah, I've had a couple of guests sit there and go like, yeah, is there any way possible to like switch that around a little bit? Because it looks like he's gonna like attack me and kill me. And I say,
I'm
well, he's
allergic
just
to cats. I'm just
oh,
kidding.
that's what I said. I just told him just throw some temptation treats out there. Just take a cat treat and flip it up into the corner. Let's see. We're talking about werewolf movies right now. We're talking about how it's important that I think it's really important too, and this is what I really was praising you about with Sanguine Teeth on a Driftless Road is you took the vampire story and flipped it upside down. And nobody does that. Not enough people do that. They made I have to go here again. I want to. So you go to that. They remade Nosferatu. I can't thank you enough for this, Charles. Uh, Nosferatu. They remade that, but they remade it they did, with Werner Herzog. If that's the one who made it with Klaus Kinski. Um, and I think the new werewolf movie is coming out, and I think it's going to be the old traditional werewolf. And I just don't get the idea. I just don't get it. Why go back and revisit ground that's already been walked over 100 times?
Yeah, I don't know. I
Well, I
guess some
mean,
people just feel like they want to tell it again, or they think they can do it better. I thought Nosferatu was pretty cool, but the lighting and the shots were gorgeous.
yeah,
But
I mean, on a
I mean,
technical, I guess on a technical, I mean, yes, you could sit there and say, yeah, the effects were great, and like I said, the lighting was great, and it shot gorgeously. That's all good, but what are you bringing new to the story? Because that's what we're here for. We're here for the
right.
story.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think I ever saw the original one. So I mean, I know there was an original one. But I
the
I don't know.
Wolfman.
I don't know why they would. I mean, I, I assume it's probably because the whole like it's a no name thing brings more people out to watch something, right? Like sequels and that whole thing, right? Like people
I think
go, "Oh, I
I really,
recognize that."
I really believe this. I really believe this. I really believe. I mean, they're already coming out with a new Dracula movie, right? They're coming out with a new Dracula movie. It has Christopher Waltz in it, and guess what? Well, guess exactly what I felt when I watched it. The reason why is because I've already seen this. I've
Right,
already
right.
seen this. I mean, it's like, what do you? You're not bringing anything new. Well, but
Yeah,
it's different. The only thing that's different is the actors, but the story it's the same thing. You gotta get the cross
right.
going on there, and you got I throw the garlic on there and all that other stuff. It's just like, well, why? I mean, another thing is like nobody's asking for these movies, and it seems like Hollywood does this a lot. It will recycle properties despite there nobody wanting it. No one's asking it. Like a new King Arthur, and there's a new Robin Hood coming. There's a new goddamn Robin Hood picture series coming, and nobody asked for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that whole idea of like name recognition, and then they every 20 year, every new generation, right? They go like, well, these kids haven't seen it, so let's do it again for those kids, you know? I
You're absolutely right.
I watched
Uh,
uh I watched The Vampire Lovers that you recommended. I hadn't seen it. It's
bet,
it's
bet you,
it's
bet you,
good. It's interesting. It has that same sort of problem to a degree, I think, like you were talking about having like you've seen this story before. I mean, I realize it was taken from a novel and 160 years ago, but
but
it
but
had a lot of the same things, right? Like it creeps in the
no,
window and it get while she's
no,
sleeping, but the
no, it did
lesbian
not.
part of it was
No,
fun.
I was gonna, no vampire movie before or since has ever had Ingrid Pitt.
Uh, is 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 that the name of the actress?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. There
I
were
mean, no
definitely
vampire movie has ever had Ingrid Pitt, like a girl like Ingrid Pitt in it. It's like she's like the female version of Christopher Lee for when the first time he walked across the stage. You're going there, yeah, that's the man. And then when you saw Ingrid Pitt, you're going like, holy crow, that's you know
I
what?
mean, I will
If vampires were real, I want it to be just like Ingrid.
I will give them that. It was definitely loaded full of beautiful women getting naked a lot. So, it had
And
that.
we got to give a shout out to our good friend Al Lucard who did a documentary on Ingrid Pitt. Got me curious. I went and watched it, and holy crow! Yeah, I told him, I says, how is it that I've gone through my entire life without watching this movie? Uh, all right, the room is filling up with some folks. Hi, Jen. How are you? Glad you're here. Hey, man, how are you? All right. Everybody saying hello to you. And of course, the mighty bat has made an appearance. Thanks, Jen. See, Trenchy mentions some stories are timeless. I do think that vampire stuff, you can change the lore, but you should keep some of the you should keep some of it. Oh, I agree. I mean, yeah, if you want to kill a vampire by a stake, or a cross, I mean, I get that. Holy water. Um, I just think that I like to see something done a little differently. Like Blade. Blade was really different. It had the same sort
Right.
of kills, but it was different because he himself was a vampire. And I thought that was a very unique take on the vampire story. Of course, then Blade Trinity came out and ruined the whole thing. But see, Jen says, ever seen the anime horror film Blood, the last vampire? Yes, and I also have Vampire Hunter D. I also own both of those. Not the live action, that was trash. I'm talking about the anime film from 2000, 2001. It's fantastic. Yes, I'll have to dig that up. Um, there was also another movie too called Rise that also starred Lucy Liu, and that was a terrific take on the vampire story. Let's see. Have you guys seen Transfiguration from 2016-17? No, I have not. No, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, so we're all talking about vampires. Austin has made a oops, he just disappeared on me. Let me go get him.
Sorry
Okay.
about I was
Austin,
trying
it's all right.
I was trying to be able to see the YouTube, and when I did, then it started echoing, so I was trying to figure out, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we hear you. Let's see. No, I haven't seen Transfiguration. That sounds like something we need to check out. The vampires in Van Helsing were awesome. Yep, that's one of my. We're gonna go on through our. We're gonna go through 5 to 10 of our favorite vampire movies here, because it's gonna be a little different. We're actually gonna be talking about some different vampire movies as well as Austin's movie. So one of the things you and I were talking about when we set this up was, and I totally feel your frustration because I feel that frustration a lot when I come down to watching independent films, and that is, it really bothers me that when like here we are talking about a new Dracula movie coming out real soon, and it's going to get a lot of buzz, and everybody's going to be talking about it and whatnot. And really frustrates me is when you get a good original film, not rebate, not a cash grab, but when you get somebody like Sanguine Teeth, it was fresh and original and different. it frustrates me along with you, Austin, that it can't catch a break in terms of getting an audience. It's hard for, like, people say, what movie, what kind of movie is it? Is it a vampire movie? Is it a monster movie? Is it a comedy? Is it a modern story? It's like, it's almost when you go out there and say, try not to categorize it. Just try to. It's a horror comedy. It's a commentary. Um, how let's go. Let me ask you a few questions about your efforts with this film. Is how hard has it been to market this movie compared to the other movies that you've made?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just like sending emails and posting and stuff like that. I haven't. I've done a little bit of like hiring, so doing some marketing, but um, I blew through. I blew through all my budget because I shot 3 movies in 2 years. So, and that was probably a mistake, but opportunities came along and got sort of roped into doing the next thing or whatever. And so, it's just been a lot of me. I don't have a big marketing budget for it, which is a bummer. Originally, I had planned for to have some, um, but I don't. So it's just, doing the word of mouth thing pretty much.
Um, yeah, and you got some great reviews. But you also said too that some of the people, and what's really frustrating, because this is the part that got to frustrate you, is the fact that a lot of people are like going like, "What is this? What kind of movie is this? What am I watching?" And there's not enough left in the tank to show them or talk to them about it. I mean, I'm sure you've gone to approach other podcasts much bigger than this one, and magazines and what have you. Have you
So
submitted?
I haven't really started yet too much because I was waiting for it to get on Tubi, and they submitted it to Tubi back in like November, and it's just been sitting there. And then they kicked it out of the queue because they accepted it, and then they kicked it out of the queue, so they resubmitted it, and now they said it's gonna launch in March. So I've been waiting for like 5 months before I like really try to, you know, do a bigger push, and do more podcasts and stuff like that. And I had kind of given up on that a couple weeks ago. I talked to the distributor, and I was like, kind of seems like they're just gonna pass on it or something. And I was like, should I just start kind of promoting it on Fossum? And they were like, yeah, let's do that. And so I did. I started doing a little bit more to try and get the word out for a little bit. But I'm also like dead in the middle of editing another movie, and I'm like at the scoring point of it now. But I'm 9 hours a day on doing that for the last 2.5, 3 months, and um, I haven't had a lot of time, anyways, to to promote it. So I'm more or less waiting until they give us the exact date of when it's going to go live. They're supposed to, anyways. Let's see, yeah,
It just
I've
seems
got too
like
much shit to
I just independent movies. It's just like the lack of physical media to help out. Like, you could submit this to Fangoria or Starlog or Rue More, or back to all the horror magazines that had magazines. All the titles that had magazines. Now, if you do get pushed on, like Bloody Disgusting, or any online horror, it just seems to be driven, to me, it seems to be driven more by I guess by people who pay the freight. Like, if I write about Dracula, with Christopher Waltz, I could push that out there and get 500,000 views on that.
right.
But to me, it's like, okay, so to me, it's like, this is a chance where both film creator and the media, they should try to compromise a little bit, and sit there and say, okay, yes, you are going to be able to get 500,000 views, right? So you made your money. Let's say your goal was 1 million views, and you got 1 million views for Dracula. You made your money. You made your point. You pushed it. You got some interviews out of it. So why not come behind that and push some more indies in the wake of what's happening? Like, there's nothing wrong with Sanguine Teeth riding the coattails of a new vampire movie, even though we're bored of it, but looking back at it to try to take advantage of that and sit there and say, and at least position the movie up as a alternative. Are you tired of seeing the same Dracula with a fang and the cape and the falling down castle? Well, come check a look at our modern take of the vampire story. If you're tired of that and you want to see something different, something a little bit more adventuresome, try to take a look at this.
I'm
And
hoping.
Go ahead.
I'm hoping. I've been so busy working on other things, but I have had a few people that have reached out, or just random people review it or whatever. And now I do have, um, a few like one-liner review quote things that I can include. So when I do try to reach out to some places like Bloody Disgusting and Fangoria, hopefully maybe I've had enough positive response. Maybe they will check it out. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure if you have to pay somebody there or not.
Well, hopefully, you shouldn't pay for anything. No,
Yeah,
no.
I
I
mean,
mean,
there are a lot of
other than the advertising, like we're in the trailer. Like if you want to sit there and say, "I'll give you $50,000 to run the trailer," I get that. That's how business is done. But as far as an independent movie go, like, yeah, I want $500 for me to review your movie. No, they're not going to do that. That's not ethical. You don't.
I definitely like reach out to places and they're like, "Oh, we'll review it for $30 or $50 or whatever." I'm like, "I'm good.
Really,
Thanks." Yeah,
like,
there's a number of places who've done that to me or said that. I think
off
that
camera, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Now, I know I do, because that's wow, that really bothers me. I've always felt like when we review things, um, we're doing this to help the filmmaker, especially the independent. Listen, if Universal came to me and said, "Hey, I want to pay $5,000 for you to run my trailer," yeah, no problem. I'll do that. I'll take their money. But if the independent production walks in there and says, "Can I get an interview? Can we talk a little bit?" That's what Eight Questions has always been. That's why other interview channels have always been. They've never. I don't know a single person in my community here that has ever charged for an interview or a review. Um, and I'll ask that among the chat. I'll sit there and say to you guys who all have, you guys, I know some of you guys get screeners. I do know that, but that's part of, that, but you don't get paid to review it. You're not getting paid for the screener. You're just getting paid has anybody ever come up to you and offered you money to review their movie? Has anybody ever done that? Or offered you money to interview any of the cast members? Has that ever happened to anybody here? Wow, I didn't know that happened. That's terrible.
for me,
Me
it's
too.
usually they'll say like, "Yeah, we'll review it. It's $30 or $50 or whatever." And like especially there's so many filmmakers or whatever out there making stuff, and they're trying to get any kind of press they can. I'm sure that there are filmmakers who probably go like, "All right, well, fuck it, I'll pay $50 if they'll write the review." So
That's just
I'm sure that's how they
that,
make some money.
well. I,
Maybe,
I
maybe
mean,
they
I,
don't.
I mean, to me, that's if you're that big that you feel like you can have to charge a strong arm independent director, then
Well,
that's when you charge
the
subscriptions
funny
to your website.
the funny thing is like the ones that I can think of that I've seen do that. I'm curious when they send that. I'm like, really? Like you're so I'll go look at their stuff and I'll be like they don't, like they get 40 views or something. I'm like,
God,
okay, that's an interesting tactic, but whatever, it's their business.
Wow, that's let's see. Jen mentions no, but I got a premiere coming up for a short film I'm in, and interviews are going to be conducted there. I'm going to try to keep my ears open and eyes open if I notice anything. Yeah, yeah. See, wow, that just I've had people offer me money on my blog. People came up to me. I got offered a writer and an actor. Both walked up to me on my blog and offered to pay me $300 a piece to interview and to review. And I said, hell no. I said, no, I'd be happy to do it for free. And I did. Both times I did the interview and I did the review for free. And I said, this is not right. You should not be being charged for that. You should, your movie should rest on its own merit. Here they are, they're out there. I mean, because the studios have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar about that. Posting out fake reviews. I mean, type in Google, yes, type in Google and type in Sony, and yeah, they had a non-existent person, journalist, and they used him, and they kept on using all these great quotes, like the best thing since sliced bread. And then someone did a little investigating and found out that it wasn't real. Someone had been just making it up and putting it on the movie posters.
Interesting. I wonder if they're just using that as like I don't know that icebreaker is the right word, but like if you approach a place and you're like, hey, I'll give you $300, and chances are they'll say, well, I don't know, I guess I don't know what most people would say. Maybe most people would take it. I don't know. It's interesting
No,
strategy.
now I get it when sometimes smaller productions, they'll trade for services. If you let us shoot at your business, we'll make sure your business gets highlighted.
Sure,
It's a trade-off. Yeah, right. Let us shoot inside of it. We'll make sure we get the name of your company in there. We'll put it in the thank you notes. That's fair. That's the even Steven trade, right? I get that. But to sit there and say, yeah, we're gonna charge you, because no one's gonna do that. Well, we'll charge you to shoot inside of our store. I don't have the budget for that. I have to go find somebody else to do it. You know. Personally, I don't understand any business that would turn down. I don't know any business. I don't know any business that would turn down an appearance in any type of movie, whether it be horror or other than maybe torture porn. I get that, but if it's a regular, go ahead.
There's probably a couple things there. One being how big of a production it is, right? Like if you've just got a random dude in his DLSR and he wants to shoot a little scene in the store. It depends on the store. I've definitely had stores charge me to shoot there, or places charge me to shoot there because if especially if they have to shut it down, right? Like I've had a gas station in the past where like they're gonna lose $500 in that 3 hours that I shot. And they like one of them was gracious enough to just charge like $100 to shoot there. We worked out an off schedule, or an off time, like not super busy time, but every situation's different. And I'm sure that I know filmmakers that have paid $800 for a location. It just depends on the location and what they need from the location and time of day. So,
but I get that too. Yeah, you're right. You just can't walk in there and say, I'll put your name on my movie credit. If I shoot here for 3 hours and you close while I do it. No, I get that. They should be compensated for that. But that's a legitimate business. I mean, that's something that's really going on. And yeah, they should be compensated for it. And hopefully even, like I said, I mean, we'll pay like $300, $200. We'll make sure your sign gets in the movie. Joe's Gas. We'll make sure we'll put the sign up there and say thank you and the note. That's the cost of doing business. But for a small town reviewer to come up there and say, yeah, I'll take $300 for me to go out there and write a glowing ass review, or get onto my YouTube and sitting there for 30 minutes talking about why Sanguine Teeth is the best thing since sliced bread. I'll be happy to do that. You know, you want to do an interview, slide in another 100, and I'll take care of you. You know, it's like, wow, you know, it's like, I know some YouTube channels are really big. I mean, if you know, like they said, well, what happens if somebody like, you know, like Mr. Beast wanted to interview you? Well, then Mr. Beast shouldn't be fucking charging you, because he's already got enough cash in his hand. He doesn't need to be charging you. He could do this out of the goodness of his heart.
He's also probably very unlikely to interview no-named, you know, actors or directors, because he wants to bring on people who are going to bring more eyeballs to his channel, right? So,
well, I'm glad that's a really good segue here for this, because once in a great while, you do capture lightning in a bottle. And I personally feel, honestly, I think the lightning in your bottle is the fact that you cast Charlie Mack in Sanguine Teeth. That was a smart ass booking, you know, to book him into your movie, even though, because I don't know if you've been keeping track of him like I have, but I think by the end of this year, he's going to be a household name. I think he's going to be he'll be doing a concert film sooner than later. You know, so one of those streaming services, it's going to break him, right? And it's like one of those things where it's like, wow, you had the foresight and he had the talent for you guys to come together and made a really fun movie. I do think that Sanguine, if he breaks, Sanguine will definitely get his due, because that's how they always is, right? Well, where did Charlie Mack come from? What has he done before this? At this particular moment, they'll go back and find your movie, and but it's one of those things where you don't want to sit there and depend on that. But I also think it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? I'm going to sell this goddamn movie. And honestly, he's a member of the cast, and I know Charlie would appreciate this. I'm going to use that. Hell yes, I am. I'm going to use the fact that he was in my movie, and I'm going to push that out. Every press release I do, I'm going to mention my main cast. I'm going to mention Charlie Mack was in this movie as well, because a lot of those eyes that are on comedy may not be so on independent film, but they want to go see what else he's done. I see nothing wrong with promoting your movie using the assets that you have.
for sure.
All right. So hi, Sue. Sue's here, and hi, Cheryl. How are you? Sue's here. We're working. Jen mentions the store has to close down. Yes, yes. Let's see. We need a Castlevania movie. The series on Netflix is great, but a live action would be great if done right. As long as it's not a traditional vampire movie, and if we can bring back Ingrid Pitt. Okay. So
probably doesn't look quite the same.
Yeah. Now I know we talked about this in your first interview, but some of the folks here might not really know this. Though I am going to put the interview up in the description box. So I mean, have you always been, when you sat down to write Nas no, Sanguine Teeth, I was going to say, when you went down to write Sanguine Teeth, were you a big creature feature fan and a big, like a Universal Monsters fan? I mean, Dracula and whatnot. Were you, or was it just something where it's like, you know, I want to make a vampire movie, I want to make it fun? But did you have a background in liking vampire movies coming up as a filmmaker?
I do like monster movies. I like creature movies. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of different types of monster movies and creature movies. Um, I'm a big fan of a lot of different types. I'm I definitely wanted to do something different, right? Like I've seen a bunch of monster movies and quite a few vampire movies. I know there's probably a lot more than I've seen. But there definitely are some tropes and some cliches that, just like you were saying, get rehashed, and I thought it would be. I was sort of like, what if I take a sardonic, ironic approach and sort of do what if, in this scenario instead of doing that. I, you find in a lot of vampire movies that it's it's seductive, right? Like they try to make this seductive thing, but it's if you really like sit back and look at it, it's like I mean, vampires aren't they're not they're like raping people, right? They're like raping and eating them for the most part. I mean, you could make the argument that they're like using their mind power to seduce them or whatever, but I mean, essentially, they're just being like, "Do this," and you know what I mean? So, like, I wanted to take take that and put it in like sort of a modern day setting. Um, there's a scene where some one of them just kills somebody. And it's just like offhanded, like it's not this big thing. It's just like, what if it was just really real? Like they were just like in this situation, and they're like, man, fuck this bitch, and you know what I mean? And like, I just tried to remove all the seductiveness from it and just sort of make it what it is. If you take that away from it, and
Right.
obviously add humor to it, which is interesting, but yeah, I was like looking through like what scenarios or um what if you what would it be like with these four black guys on this vacation, right? Like, but they're vampires and they all have their own individual situations or things, right? And like, how does that play out? So for me, it was like fun to write because I'm like imagining like what would this really what would really happen here, like
Right.
how would it work? And so that was fun, I think, to do that.
And different. I mean, I can only think of. I mean, people can correct me, but I was thinking about this too, and I was thinking like I could only remember up till Sanguine. I could only remember three vampire movies I've seen that featured an African American cast. Blackula, Vampire in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and Blade, and that's really the only time I could ever see it. I was trying to think of who else has been around, and I'm thinking,
Was
well, that makes it unique right away because there's not very movies featuring a black vampire at all.
Yeah. I imagine there's probably some um to be vampire movies or something. I'm
I
sure
don't know.
some
You know,
have vampire.
we got a chat full of good horror fans here, so I'm going to throw it over to them. They could let me know. I know Jen is here, and I know the people will come up with some ideas. But let me know any vampire movies that you know that feature a black vampire as the lead. Um, oh, okay. I think I just thought of another one, which is a comedy, I think, and that was Vamp with Grace Jones. So one woman led my vampire movie, and three men. So four, four movies that I can think of that featured African American cast as vampires, and that is really unique. And I've never seen. I mean, I always thought at first I thought Vampire in Brooklyn was supposed to be a comedy, and then I found out that yeah, not so much. You know, and of course I already knew Blackula and Blade. They were strong characters in dramatic roles. So I mean, I just think that's
I didn't
really interesting. Go ahead.
I didn't really write it with the intention of like, hey, there aren't any, black vampire movies out there. It was more like I have several black friends who are good friends of mine who are actors, and I was like, well, what if I just had them be the vampires? Because at first, like, when I was first sort of trying to put it together, I was like, how can I make this work? like with all the restrictions, monetary restrictions, and all of that I had to deal with. There were some original ideas of having Doug Montoya be one of the vampires. Um, I had thought possibly about being one of the vampires for just a quick second, when I first started, and I was like, eh,
No, you were great.
no.
Vampire
Uh,
hunter.
but then I was like, I, I already had two actors. Well, I had two of my friends. I was like, okay, I'll have them be vampires. And then there was a comedian that I know, and I really wanted him to play one of the characters, and so I reached out to him, and he was on board, and he was he was going to do it all the way up until, man, like a month before. We'd had rehearsals and so forth, but he had a health issue, and I ended up having to replace him because he he wasn't healthy enough to do it. Um,
Oh,
and then originally I had the vampire that plays Alamo is like a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for like 30 years, and um, his cousin is Lavelle Crawford. And so I was like, well, here, I'm gonna write this with the idea that Lavelle Crawford will play that character. And, you know, he talked to him for me, and then we talked a little bit, and I sent him the script. He passed on it. I don't know why. It could be that I didn't have enough money to offer him, probably, possibly. But anyways, that's how I ended up then looking for another large black man, and ended up finding Charlie Mack. I think I had three people audition, three or four. I had like even Jason Rouse sent me several comedians to check out, and for whatever reason, I ended up going with Charlie. He was at
he's
that
funny.
point he didn't have much online. He just had like a
Uh-huh.
few skits that he had shot himself. And I
Yeah.
was I was entertained with it. I could tell he could act. I could tell he had a lot of drive, and that was part of the reason why I chose him, because I could tell just by like look, I hate to say that, like looking at his social media, but I could see like this kind of the stuff he was posting, and like he was hustling. And I had before I had found him, like one of the guys, Jason Rouse, had recommended to me. He like didn't get back to me for like, well, he did get back to me, and then he never sent me an audition. And then he reached back out again like 6 weeks later and was like, "Oh, hey, do you still want an audition?" I was like,
Yeah.
sorry, dude.
No. Yeah, that coffin got buried. That coffin got buried.
Yeah. So
Uh,
anyway, it just
yeah,
sort of
you're right. That's what I
it,
mean
it,
about Charlie Mack is like you're right. He's hustling. I mean, I looked at that too after I saw the movie, and I'm looking out there and I started talking to him, and next thing I know, that guy, he's yeah, he's hungry. He's hungry, real hungry.
yeah. Yeah, so between, you know, seeing, because I'm always kind of entertained by like people who are so motivated that they will shoot their own shorts or whatever, whether it's a green screen or something like that. I'm always entertained by that, especially if they like really went in on it, Like I'm like, okay, this he wants to act. He really wants to act. So, anyways, I'm really glad I
Um,
kept because he did, I'm pretty sure, way better than I would have gotten otherwise. But
I like the fact that idea you kept your character, the vampire hunter, because that was a lot of fun. You seem to have a lot of fun, and that's another good segue is that you seem to have a lot of fun acting as well as you do shooting your films and writing your films. Um, I mean, you recently did a short. I'm thinking you did this short. You did it for Doug Montoya, who did Sanguine Teeth for you, and he made us basically his first short film. How did you get involved with that? Um, and what kind of advice did you give him in making that and marketing it?
So we shot that like 2 years ago, and had all there were all kinds of issues that he had with getting it done. And so in the meantime, he has, shot a whole bunch of other shorts. And you should go check them out on ACTV on YouTube. He likes to shoot stuff where he plays a lot of the characters, or he'll play the character and shoot stuff himself as well. So we do a lot of that actually. We will sort of trade off roles like on camera or sound or something like that in different scenarios where like maybe I'm acting or he's acting sometimes. But yeah, I think that he had started to shoot another film and ended up not liking it. But this one, um, we completed it. We shot it, I think, in a weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And then he had some trouble getting some of the footage and some of the sound. Things were taking a while, like getting things back or whatever. So then in the meantime, we ended up shooting 3 movies. So I think that was a bit of a distraction. And I also kind of stayed on him about it because I think he was just kind of like, I'm over it. But
So basically, what you did is you showed them. You basically said, "Hey, you got an idea and you want to shoot it, so do it." I think that's impressive that you don't let it. Because there's a lot of times where someone will actually quit up on an idea because they do get discouraged, or maybe they run a little short of cash or equipment. And there's a lot of times where it just quietly goes into the smoke, into the ether. I'm glad you didn't let him do that, especially with his short film here. It might have took 2 years to get here, but you know what? It was a very entertaining 2 years. I mean, as far as his career goes, and I'm sure if he looks at the movie now, I'm sure he's very, very grateful for you for not letting to give up on it because it's actually a very entertaining little film.
yeah, it was interesting to shoot. It was fun. It was fun, sort of getting into that character. I think I
You were
like.
you were hilarious. You were funny. Even though I'm sitting over there and I'm going like, what, this guy's he's gonna put a hole in you, but you're sitting there still monologuing. I mean, you're just like I'm like, man, this is look at the monologue. He's that was cracking me up. Um,
Yeah,
I thought I thought it was well done.
it's I mean it's a mental health film, without like beating it over the head, right? Like I'm playing someone who has some pretty serious mental health issues. So, that's kind of, I think, why it was created, was for that. But like, without.
Okay, so I will have to mention this. Someone mentioned Doug. Someone mentioned Yay Doug. Joyful karaoke. Said Yay Doug, and then I put underneath there. I put Doug and Astro because that damn dog stole scene from you. He stole the scene in the park. I'm sitting there watching that, and first you're thinking it's just a padding. It's like okay, they're trying to pad this out a little bit, but then the girl, then Amy, right? Uh, that's the actress. She walks him out to the park, and then he's there on the leash, and then she unhooks him, and he's still staying there. He's still staying there until she says, "Okay." And then he goes off and he hits the ground running. He's doing zoomies. And I'm going like, that dog is really well trained. That dog is really well trained. And look at him run. Look at him run. I'm sitting there going like, that's an amazing dog. Um, so then I'm laughing at it because I'm going like, I should be watching the rest of this film, but here I am hooked on the dog, going back and watching the dog. Like, he didn't move until she said it was okay. And then he runs all over the place. I was like, okay, stealing scene. Um, what do they say? What do they say about filmmakers? Never work with animals and children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely. But
Uh,
he obviously he knows his dog, so that was.
yes.
I think he even said, I would never work with another animal, but just because
The dog.
it's historically a pain in the ass. unless you get a
Uh,
really
that,
well.
yeah, that dog was well trained. I was like, I was very entertained by that. And then, of course, I was very entertained by your monologue. And at the end, I was like, now, because that was really good. I'm like, and you could definitely tell you were having fun in the role. And, and it definitely was. And I'm thinking, okay, this is like sort of like is this sort of like something you like to do in between films? Like you wrap up one film and while you're working at the next one, but you still want to stay creative. You still want to say, still want to be in front of a camera or around a camera or on a set. Do you find yourself going into your acting mode in between the films with that intent? Like, I just want to do something creative and something fun where I don't have to tax my brain as much as I do as far as filmmaking goes.
No, 'cause it's pretty taxing, but I just kind of take it as it comes, like um whatever opportunities come whenever they come, like I have a number of acting things that I have coming up. Acting is like one of my number one things that I like to do, but I'm really enjoying being able to create a story and direct it and make that story come to life. So I'm doing that too, although that's I mean, it's way more work, as opposed to like, learning lines for a few weeks or a month or something, depending on how many lines they are, and then showing up, doing it for a week and being done. You've got a lot of, because I'm doing, sound and coloring and editing and the pre-production for the most part on these films and scheduling and all of it. So it's pretty daunting. Sometimes I'm, doing post production work on one thing and pre-production work on another thing and learning lines for another film. So I just sort of going whatever I can manage to do and letting it happen, I guess.
Mm. Um, Now you're already working on the next film as well. Uh, Now, what lessons have you taken from the previous two films of Sanguine Teeth and Sweet Killing Machines? What have you learned the most in becoming a director? I mean, do you take when you rolled into doing when you started doing Sanguine Teeth, did you feel like you were a much better director than you were for Sweet Killing Machines? And then your new movie, What Have We Won? Do you feel like you're a better director now than you were for Sanguine Teeth? I mean,
Yeah. Um, yes. I, I've learned a lot of little things, I guess. I'm, and I've been on a lot of other sets and watched other directors and stuff, and I'm not, I'm not the director. Like, I like to have the conversations with people before we shoot, and if possible, like I'm on such kind of a low budget, um, situation as far as like what I can afford. I feel guilty for the most part trying to get actors and actresses to spend a whole lot of time doing like practices or table reads on such a low amount of money, you know. Um, so I will do a little bit of it, but I'm mostly relying on them. And so far, most of them have been good. And I've tried to choose people who I can tell are really trying to make, an acting career for themselves, which tells me that they're probably going to be diligent and learn their lines and show up prepared. Um, then I'm not really the type of director who just starts telling them what I want them to do on set. I like to just let things happen, more or less, other than, like, I need you there, I need you to, we're gonna do this kind of here and whatever, like, but I'm not like, all right, this is what I want from you. I just want to see what they're gonna do. And they've already talked to me, right? Like, and they already have an idea what I'm looking for, what the character is supposed to be. So I'm trusting them to do what they're gonna do. And once in a while I need to like suggest an adjustment or whatever if something isn't working. But for the most part, because I've been on sets where I watch directors sit there and be like, somebody gives a really good performance, and it almost feels like they just feel like they need to talk, so they feel like they have a reason to be there. You know what I mean? As a director,
Right.
um, I don't really care about that. I'm looking for a certain thing, and as long as they're fairly close, sometimes actors surprise you and they do something you weren't expecting at all, or it's totally different, and you're like, yeah. Once in a while, I may say, um, let's do it again like this because I want to make sure that I have a choice. Like when I get into the editing room, I may like, and oftentimes I do like what they did better because comedy lends itself to some improv, right? Like, Sanguine was 100 and I don't know, what was it, 140 page script or something, and there's still like additional lines here and there, or you know what I mean, like, and sometimes those little lines are just like that cherry on top, right? They're great. This is funny. Just keep that thing. So it's different than shooting like a drama, or I think for the most part, or a thriller, where sometimes you can keep a little bit of improv, but for the most part, you're going to stick to the script. The comedy lends itself to like sometimes there are times and scenes where we will go on for an extra, you know, minute or 50 seconds or something of unscripted stuff. And once in a while that'll make it in. There's a part in Sanguine where they are in the antique mall. And I wrote it so that they had specific lines to say to get into the antique mall. And then I said, all right, have fun. So then I just filmed them, comedians in an antique mall, essentially. And I took some of the best parts of it, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, it feels a little bit like The Office in there, but um, and that's not like my favorite style of film, but it's just the scene lended itself to it, and I thought it turned out funny, so it worked.
Now, is it hard for actors? I mean, you're an actor as well. Is it harder to get into a film like Sanguine Teeth, where it basically really is a fantasy or horror movie, uh, versus something like Sweet Killing Machines, which could be grounded in reality? I mean, that could happen. I could see that happening in real life. A couple of guys going out there to fulfill a job. I could get that. Like, okay. Um, do actors have a hard time when you walk up to somebody? When you have to walk up to somebody, or somebody walks up to you and says, "Okay, I want you to play a monster. I want you to play a vampire." I mean, is it hard for? I mean, what kind of emotions, especially, I guess, especially for actors who have not really done horror or creature feature, so to speak. Do you find it hard for them to get into the characters? Like, okay, I want you to play a vampire. I've never done that before, so how do I do that? Um, how do you get them to
So
get into that kind of
are
mind
you
and that
asking
mind mode?
are you asking me how I feel about it, or are you asking me how I
Both
perceive?
as a director and as an actor. I mean, if I mean, because there's two different ways to look at it. As an actor, I want you to play a vampire. Okay. But then when you wrote the story, you hadn't written anything like that before. So it's like, how do I write a vampire movie? How do I do that? How do I get my mindset into the world of a vampire when I really never been there before? Um, I mean, I guess I would sit there and say, is it harder to write fantasy than it is to write a reality based drama, or vice versa?
No, I don't think it's harder to write fantasy. I think I mean, both can be fun. It Budget constraints often are the hurdle there, right? Like that, I think that is the challenging part. How do you make a vampire movie with a very low budget? and still make it
Mhm.
entertaining without having to have a $10,000 prosthetic, outfit, costume, or whatever. Um, and I don't know. I'm sure there's people watching this that have been on horror films that have had cheaper costumes than that, but there's a price there. Anyways, um, I don't think it's harder. Um, it's fun and getting into. So this one is I suppose, sort of unique because it's grounded in reality, right? Like I'm just taking these fanciful ideas and trying to like ground them in our reality, in our current situation. So I don't know. For me, it's just like a fun puzzle, right? Like it's like I'm, I've got little rules here that I've created, and I'm trying to figure out how do I make this make sense and add comedy to it and make it shootable on this budget. Ask me again when I get a 500,000 or $1 million budget someday. Is it harder to write this?
Actress Jamie Hill just walked through the door. And hi, Jamie, how are you? And I'm going to ask this question. I asked this to Jamie, um, and I just see her coming through the door. It makes me just jingle my memory here. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked her. So let's just say by hook or by crook, all of a sudden, Sanguine Teeth gets picked up by Fossum. Um, Charlie Back does a great concert film and blows up like we were talking about earlier. And the perfect storm, all of a sudden, people realize and discover your film, and it blows up. All of a sudden, it's like people are talking about it, people are watching it, people are basically the movie's making money. Let's say let's just for the hell of it, for the argument's sake, let's say the movie just gets a theatrical release, makes $5-10 million, something like Iron Lung or something like that. You know what could happen? I mean, look at Iron Lung. I mean, who nobody saw that coming. And it's not the first time. Jamie was a part of one of those movies too, which is why this question came from. She was in a movie that had a very low budget, and it blew up and made millions, millions. So let me ask you this: let's just say the Sanguine Teeth came out, and it blew up, and let's say it made $15 million.
Yay.
Are you gonna go ahead? Are you gonna go back and recompensate your cast for work? Let's say you already
Yes,
paid them. I mean, you paid. Let's
yes,
say they each made $1,000 for shooting Sanguine Teeth, but all of a sudden the
yes,
movie popped up. Yeah. Do you think
absolutely.
direct? Yeah. Do you think directors should do that? In your opinion, do you think that directors should go back there, or producers should do that when a movie unexpectedly hits like that? Like you're not expecting it to blow up that big, but when it does, you're
I
looking
would.
back at the yeah,
I mean, I think that's a fair thing to do. I mean, there's a couple thoughts of schools of thought there, right? Like the the producer took this huge risk and put a whole bunch of his own money in and time and blah blah blah. So they deserve the reward. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I just feel like it'd be fucked up if suddenly I'm a millionaire and I'm like, thanks guys. That would be for
yeah,
me, I would not feel good about that.
yeah. I mean, because I was thinking about that, and going like, wow, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's say I pay, let's say it's a low budget movie, and I have like
But
$3,500 for my two leads, and
another
1,500. Go ahead.
another part of that though is that oftentimes the person who made that movie doesn't necessarily really own the rights to it. It doesn't depending, like we have all heard the horror stories of distributors who they keep that couple $100,000 and maybe the director or the producer who submitted that low indie budget film gets 20 grand out of the whole thing, and it looks like it blew up or whatever, but they don't, the distributor's just robbing them, s- itemizing everything, I don't know. You've probably heard the stories. We don't need to go down that lane, but um, I I own it. I didn't do that, so I mean, a distributor will take a cut,
Sure.
hopefully. Hopefully it doesn't get shady there, but it's someone I know, so hopefully, yeah, you know,
Yeah, I was just, I was always curious about that because it's like, here you are making a small movie, and they say, what was your budget? Oh, we did it for $100,000, and it's like, I understand, to me, and this is, I guess the point is to whatever you do, no matter what, the one golden rule for any filmmaker is keep your damn rights. Don't give those away for nothing. Because you just never know. You just never know. Um,
yeah, yeah. There's all sorts of scenarios there, but yeah,
especially
and a
if you're
lot of
like a screenwriter.
times, if someone else funded it, right? Like if you got a big chunk of money from someone else, oftentimes it can be like they get all their money back first, and then they keep 50% of what the film or 51% of what the film made, plus the distributor takes their 20-30%. So the filmmaker may only, even if it made $1 million, they may only get, 200,000 or something. So anyway,
Uh,
there's a lot of different ways that can go.
Producers don't make millions. The other big ones that own it do. That's fine. You just keep the rights, and then if the situation rolls in to where your movie blows up, as the person who owns the rights, you can go back. And who's to say it has to be just the director? To me, it's also like the producers as well. Or, to me, it's like, especially when they come back to you. You look at someone like Damien Leone, who made Terrifier. All of a sudden, you think that he would go back to work with them again if they absolutely took him for everything he had for the first movie? We're gonna give you $5 million for you to make your movie. Okay, wow, you made $80 million. We're taking it all. We're gonna take everything. Oh, but we want you to do another movie. Do you think?
Yeah,
I don't know anybody that's going to turn around and sit there and say, "Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea," or I can give you even more money. To me, it's like, no, I want everybody to be compensated fairly. We made $80 million off this. Why can't in order to keep the machine rolling? Why does one person have? I mean, I understand they'll get their money back. I know it's a business, but at the same time, it's like, look, that movie wasn't expected to do $80 million. You're expecting to do hopefully $6 million. You're hopefully make a small profit. Anything that you get beyond the initial what the movie was tracking for, you're happy. Anything else is just a bonus. It's a tremendous. It's a miracle. So, to me, it's like, okay, Art the Clown made $80 million. She's sitting there going like, holy shit! I thought maybe we make $5 million off that, or $6 million. Who's to say? And well, you know what? I want to bring back everything that made this movie a success the first time. I want to bring it all back, and I want to make sure the people that were in it with us for the first time. I want to make sure that they get taken care of.
right.
And then you go ahead and make another one and do
Definitely have
150.
enough. If you had them in the sequel and you were still like, here's your $300, no, you fucked up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think you're gonna make. I don't think you're gonna get. You're not gonna make that movie then. I think. I
Yeah,
think.
right.
I think actors will look at it and go like, yeah, I'm worth a little bit more than that. And in the case of Art, Art the Clown, or any of these movies with, more so than anything else. That's really interesting. You mentioned that too, because you look at a movie like Scream, a horror movie like Scream, and it's like anybody could play the Ghostface. Anybody can play Ghostface because it's not defined. There's no definition of that character.
Right.
Unlike like Michael Myers and Jason. I think any creature with a mask on is it can be replaced. Anything where you're showing your face at cannot be replaced. You can't sit there and say, yeah, I can get another person to play Art the Clown. No, you can't. You could, could anybody walk up there and play Matthew's part in Sanguine? No, because that's who he is. He's the vampire. He's the leader. That's the face you see. That's the reason why you're here for the movie. You're here because you identify with him. But I do think that I guess horror movies with creatures and masks, man, you're right. What does it really matter who plays them? You're not going to see his face. That's interesting. Thank you, Jamie, for letting me ask the question when you were here. I asked you that, I just because I was just curious, but I meant to ask that when she wasn't here, because I'm going to be asking that question because I'm very curious to see kind of answers I get with it. You and I were talking about our favorite vampire movies, and we thought that we would talk about some of the vampire movies that we liked and loved a little bit. And I'd like to still do that with you if you'd like to step up into it. I made a little list of 10. I think we said 5. But if you want to do 10, that's fine with me. I'm sure you have them up there, or you have 5.
I didn't make a list. I forgot.
You didn't make the list. Oh
no,
my
I
God.
just
That's it. You're fired.
Yeah, no. Here, let me Google real quick so I can. I know that like Let the Right One In is one of my favorites. Blade is one of my favorites. Shit. I was just supposed to watch the Vampire Lover.
Well, you saw that one. That's definitely your top 5 now, isn't it?
Definitely not in my top 5.
Wow. Okay, I want to hear you say. I want to hear you name 5 other vampire movies that's better than Vampire Lovers. I'm curious now.
I did like it. I liked it for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I'm a big classical music fan. I liked the classical music that they had. They were scoring it with often. Obviously, the naked women. It's always fun to watch. The lighting was interesting, and I always find some enjoyment in watching like older movies that I haven't seen when they're pretty well done. I think it's fun to see the pacing and the lighting style and all of that. So I did enjoy it. But like we had said earlier, I felt like, the conversations and the dialogue weren't very interesting most of the time. I felt like they were just simply to drive motivation for the story, like, oh, well, where's Cindy? Oh, she's up in bed. She's sick, like there wasn't. I find, most of the time in life, people don't just talk about what they're like the main story, right? Like they talk about other things that are happening while they're living, and I just felt like that story was kind of like, here's the vampire story we've seen, like it's from a 160-year-old book, right? So they're just redoing this idea that's been done a bunch of times. But the lesbian thing was cool. I didn't.
I think what made that movie so different too is the fact that, because before we hadn't seen any. Well, I don't think we
Right,
had
at
seen
the
anything
time.
up to that point. At that point, as
Yeah,
far
at
as
the time, that was a fresh take as far as film goes, right? Like
Mhm.
it wasn't until like around 70s or so where it was okay to like show a lesbian love thing, right? So that
Yeah.
was fresh at the time. But
I mean, just a Dracula movie in general. It's I know I remember when an Interview with a Vampire came out, and
I
a lot
like
of
them.
people were but a lot of people were disturbed by the fact that Kristen Dunst was only 12 years old, and she was playing a vampire that's hundreds of years old, but she's basically trapped in the body of a child.
uh, I
You know,
think
you know, it's
that's
like,
I think that's great. Like I think what an original idea, right? Like especially at the time, like
well,
shit,
she's
shit
acting like an adult.
happens.
I mean, she's acting like an adult because she's hundreds of years old. But at the same time,
Yeah,
you're looking at her, and it's like she's like 12 years old, and it's like you just get that really uneasy, creepy feeling about it. It's like
right.
that's a little weird, and even the actors, the older actors, just sitting there going like, they felt really uncomfortable. Some of them actually said they felt uncomfortable with that too. Like playing against her when she's only 12 years old, and here she is. She's supposed to be like 300 years old, but you're sitting there going like, that takes a great faith, a great leap of faith into seeing that your scene partner as a 300-year-old vampire, and yet she's a kid.
Yeah. For me,
Um,
that's what made it great. Like, I like that taking a thing and going, well, what if, right? And that's what they did. They went like, oh, what if fucking 12-year-old, 300-year-old, 12-year-old, right? Like that's fun.
I the vampire movies I personally like are more. God, I like the action oriented ones.
I do,
Like
yeah.
Blade,
I like
like
I
Blade.
like the Underworld a lot. I mean, I know it's
Uh,
like, it's kind of a popcorn movie, but it's fun. I dig it. I like the action vibe and the fight
I
between the
I
light.
like Blade 2. Like I like Blade 2 more than I like Blade 1, in the sense I thought
Yeah,
his character was more developed, and I like
yeah,
the interaction that they had with the other vampires. It was different. It's like it was different. You never see anything like that before. And even though it was based on a comic book, but it was a refreshing take on the character. And at the end of the movie, and you see that they have feelings. Like they're just not soulless. As we're always led to believe that they're all soulless. they're
right,
they're walking dead. But at the end of Blade, we find out that it's not so. That's not so true. And I like the idea. I like how they put the humanity in all of them. Even the bad guys had humanity. Not maybe not much, but there was still some there, and it was
well,
interesting.
in some of the original, folklore and myth and stuff, vampires, that idea they were actually zombies, right? They weren't quite the original stories, and we're trying, kind of trying to explain some of the plague stuff that was happening, and so they weren't the same as like vampires, and I think that's cool, right? Like, I mean, it's made up, so when you just take an idea that is already there and you go like, well, what if we just let's have another version, then it becomes interesting again, I think. Sometimes,
Yeah,
sometimes not.
I definitely think that the '60s. I think the '60s definitely. It was from Bela Lugosi came out in 1931 for the first Dracula. He's
Yeah,
there's very few times, honestly. There's really very few times where a character has come onto a screen like that and broken the mold already. And you're chasing that. You're
right,
chasing that idea. Most of the time, like we go now, we make a movie like the new Dracula movie coming out. Oh my gosh, you already know the costume's going to be better. You already know the sets are going to be better. You already know the effects are going to be way better. You already know that. But I mean, it's you already know, and that's not. And they're watching it at 31. You're going like, we're going to be chasing that. We're going to be chasing that Dracula for always and forever. We're always
yeah,
going to be chasing that. King Kong? No, we don't. We're gonna. That's not going to be what's to chase. We could catch and do King Kong better than the 1933 character. Werewolf. We can do and do much better werewolves than we did in the first one. Dracula is one of the very first few movies that I can think of where they set the bar the very first, and we're always going to be chasing after that. There's never going to be quite no matter how good it is, whether it be the one with Gary Oldman, the one with Frank Langella, Ingrid Pitt,
yeah. I was gonna, that was
Christopher. Yeah, we're
that,
always going to be chasing. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, that one was a very good one. I was sort of my point there with, with the Bela Lugosi, like you've got that stereotypical idea, a little more dapper, a little less gross, right? Like, and then someone goes like, well, what if Dracula was like sort of decrepit and decaying, you know what I mean? And like creepy instead of,
Oh, he was
and then,
creepy.
and then even more so than like with Nosferatu or whatever, like that's, he was disgusting, like half falling apart, sort of.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. See, I think to me that was a calculated risk for doing something like that because we've all been conditioned to, the viewing audience has all been conditioned to look at vampires as smooth and debonair. I mean, whether it be Bela Lugosi, Eddie Murphy, Christopher Cushing. I mean, Frank Langella, for Eric Gary Oldman. They all been perceived. Wesley Snipes, William Marshall. They've all been portrayed as smooth and debonair. It's very rare that they ever look like was the Skarsgård that did Nosferatu. He did that one, right? Skarsgård. I think if if you pair them face to face on the screen and you ask people what vampire movie are going to interest you more, the modern take of it, with like David Boreanaz as an angel, or Skarsgård in traditional vampire. Honestly, if you see them side by side, I really don't think there's much of a conversation. I think everybody's going to go over there with a smooth vampire, because that's how our first introduction was to vampire. He was a smooth operator. Bela Lugosi, smooth operator. I mean, I don't know if there's. I'm not sure in today's world a traditional vampire from the old school. I don't think that's very interesting to the viewing audience, and I think that's what really helped out us. Sanguine Teeth is the fact that it wasn't a traditional vampire movie. It was not that. It was something new, something fresh. It was like, when I'm watching it, I'm going like, this is really interesting to me. I've never seen a vampire portrayed like this. And I'm not a big vampire guy. I really am not. I mean, I like them okay. I mean, I have a top 10 list, but it's not like it's not like the first thing I'm going to go to I'll go to my TV board is a vampire. So when I see something fresh like Sanguine,
I like vampire movies, but I'm not like, immersed in it where it's like part of my being or something. I just thought there was some room there for some comedy to be had.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Hell, even Leslie Nielsen took a crack at it. He did that vampire spoof movie. I mean, I haven't seen that, but I know that's what it was. It was like Airplane, so they're making fun of all the tropes of vampire movies. Like I said, I didn't see it, but I know what they were doing. But yeah, I mean, it's well, I mean, even if I look at my list that I did, I mean, like I do. I mean, there's some really good movies here. It's a couple of scary movies too. When I was just a kid, and I saw Salem Slot on CBS on TV, regular TV. That spooked the shit out of me. That was really fun to watch. I had read the book by Stephen King, but then they made a miniseries out of it, and it was a lot of fun. I like Priest. I thought Priest was really well done. That was with Paul Bettany and Carl Urban. That was really good. They played vampire hunters.
I don't think I saw that one.
Actually, Carl Urban played a vampire, and Paul Bettany played and Maggie Q. They played vampire hunters. Great movie. Scott Stewart directed it, and he did it right after he did Legion.
Okay, I might have to check that one out. It's pretty good.
And then I put number 8. I put Blackula. I thought Blackula was great. I thought William Marshall was he's one of the best vampires I've ever seen. I thought he was great. Then I did Underworld. I was with you. Underworld action adventure. Vampires vampires were in fighting werewolves. It was a lot of fun. Of course, that's what made Kate Beckinsale a huge star. Sophia Myles was in it as well. She's great. What else did I put down? Oh, I put down Yui Bowles' Blood Rain with Christiana Loken. That was actually way better than people expected. Nobody expected that movie to be any good at all, but that movie was all right. I liked it. I thought the costuming was great, and Christiana Loken definitely shined really brightly in that one. I know they made a couple of sequels after that didn't come up to that same level, but I thought she did a great job, and she was the first. She's actually, I think Blood Rain came out before Underworld, so I think she was actually the first female vampire I saw in an action role. Let's see. Of course, I did the Vampire Lovers, and I did a Van Helsing. Richard Roxburgh played Dracula, and fantastic job. That's that's a fantastic job, and probably my favorite. Probably my second favorite werewolf movie, I guess, so to speak. That movie has a lot of heart to it, a lot more than people expect. I think definitely had my favorite performance of the Frankenstein's monster was in Van Helsing by far. I thought the guy played Sherman. Oh, I forgot his last name. Hewler. I think it's Hewler, and he played Frankenstein's monster. He was really great. Blade
It's
Two.
been so long since I've seen that movie.
Oh man, it's so exciting. That movie holds up. Number
Especially-
two would be Angel from TV. I love that series a lot. And our friend Trenchy mentioned how it's underrated now. I said because the viewing audience of that series when it was on TV is sort of aged out, and so younger people have to discover it for themselves. And hopefully they do because it's a great series. And they're redoing Buffy. They're redoing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They're bringing that back. It's supposed to be coming out later on this year. So it'll be interesting to see how well it's received. And then, of course, the number one vampire movie, obviously,
Twilight.
1931. Oh, shit. Bite your tongue. The number one for me, I would have to sit there and say would be Dracula 1931. I think Bela Lugosi just set the table, and he set the high standard, and no one's ever surpassed it yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I didn't make a list, but uh, definitely Underworld and Blade, and I like Let the Right One In. It's one of my favorites. The Lost Boys, and I don't know. There's probably another couple in there.
do you like seeing vampires portrayed as villains or heroes more?
But, I don't really care. I mean, I think it just depends. Whatever the movie lends itself to. If it's a movie about a monster, then it's a movie about a monster. If it's a movie about Blade, for example.
What about your cast and Sanguine? I mean, when you wrote that, did you write them as anti-heroes or straight villains?
I wrote them as having, you know, as being real, because like very, very often, villains are nice people, right? Like
Right.
there are moments in there where some of the characters are doing some kind of horrible things, but then they're nice, right? Like, so
It's-
I think all characters, generally good characters, have moments where you're like, oh, they're not so bad, and then sometimes they do shit that's terrible. So yeah, I mean, I just tried to. They each had their own personalities, right? To some degree, like what they've got going on with themselves. But there were definitely moments where Kano's not a very nice character, but generally, I think you find yourself liking him, except for once in a while you go like, "Damn, that was a fucking dick move."
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
but then again, like you said, I guess what made it stand out is the fact that they weren't aggressive. They weren't malicious. They were just following their nature. That's part of who they were. It wasn't
Yeah,
like this wasn't like they took joy into killing anybody. It was just like that, it's just like us eating dinner. Like, okay,
sure.
we ate dinner, that's what we're doing. I had a hamburger. I didn't kill it
That's,
out of cruelty. I killed it because I was hungry.
yeah. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I think they have their moments, right? Like the one guy was a dick, so they tore him
Uh,
apart.
right. Well,
So
you learned a valuable lesson before you left this planet. Be nice to people. Even vampires have feelings. All right, Austin. We have hit our mark. I'm going to go ahead and we'll stop right here. And notice how I saved. Notice how I saved your next movie for next time. And I'm glad for it because we'll have you come back and whatever we won, we'll be talking about that. I know you said you're still in post production for that. So when we get there to it, we'll definitely bring you back and we'll talk about the movie. And the review for the diligence, the di- the
diligence and deceit.
diligence of deceit is out now. You can catch my review here on my channel. You can also check it out on IMDb. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and supporting the show. We will be back. We'll be back here on the 11th. Our good friend Ken Sledge from Sledgehammer Horror will be our guest on the 11th. On the 18th, we have the Doc and Critter show will be here. Doc Kaiju and Critter will be here with us on the 18th. And on the 22nd, the ISC Midnights will be riding back in 2 shows in 1 month. We'll be taking a look at the Midnight Man. And because that movie is so strong, we had to bring in our guest night, Jen from Reviews from the Grave. She's going to come in and hang out with us as we talk about the Midnight Man on the 22nd of February. Horror Tuber of the Month, Jen from Reviews from the Graves. That's right. Very impressive, by the way. And so we're looking forward to that. It'll be the first time since we've had a guest on it in a while. So I'm looking forward to talking about that movie. It stars Lynn Shay from the Insidious franchise and Robert Englund from Nightmare on Elm Street. So looking forward to it. All right, Austin. I want you to hang out right where you're at. And to the chat, we will see you soon. We're working on some dates. And then, yeah. I appreciate everybody coming in. I appreciate that so much. More than you know. Wouldn't be able to do this without you. All right. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you when we do. Peace.
Thanks, guys.